All right, so this is Danny Ray Crum Jr. with Psych Monkey 911 back there, watching over my shoulder. Today's video is going to be an interview with a school counselor, getting her personal and professional perspective on this current pandemic. And I see her trying to check in now, so let's meet her. Somebody do a drum roll. All right, Miss Lyons there, as you can see, her name is checking in her audio. Miss Lyons, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Perfect timing. I was just doing my shtick, introducing, who and what we are. Let me introduce you to the world of people watching us right now. This is Victoria Lyons. She is a school counselor, and she is going to talk about her personal and professional perspective on anxiety and stress during this current pandemic. Now, I guess as all companies do, I should make the disclaimer, like when one company owns another or they're affiliated or whatever. Miss Lyons is a colleague, and I dare say a friend of mine, although she might be about to crush me on national video, but we get along exceptionally well. We work together, and that was one of the main reasons I thought she would be a perfect voice on this. She's personable, she's authentic. This is not a fake person. She has a passion for what she does, and I really thought that she could bring something to this that people would identify with. So with that said, and I admit, if my head goes up and down, I'm still working on mastering the camera, because I want to look at you, but that picture's below the camera lens. I have my little cheat script up here, Miss Lyons. If I may get us started by asking you to introduce yourself, your basic resume vitae, if you will.
True. Well, first of all, thanks for all the nice things that you said. And I'm a little nervous, so I'm sorry that if I start rambling on. But really, thank you for that awesome introduction.
Thanks for not crushing me when I said we were friends.
Of course, we're friends. I mean, you and I've talked about so much stuff. Like it's. But just my basic background. So I grew up in a small town. Went to Marshall, graduated with my bachelor's and master's. My bachelor's is in psychology, my master's is in school counseling, and I did my internships at middle school, a little bit of an elementary school, and also an alternative education program. So I've kind of had a little dabble here and there, but my first school counselor job was actually in elementary school, which I didn't think I'd end up at. I was thinking I'd end up in like a high school, but I'm loving working in an elementary school, so I can kind of give here's how little kids are kind of taking this whole pandemic situation, because I know that, and with schools being out too, I mean, kids are just taking this so hard. You have those kids who are like, yay, we're not going back to school, like it's great, but you have kids who, school is their safe place, it's their home. We have a lot of families who just, they struggle with, just being in poverty, and sometimes they have cycles of abuse, and that's in every household. That's low income and high income, that's everywhere. But for those kids who are suffering, school is normally the place they go to feel safe and even sometimes loved and nurtured. So I can give that a little bit of that perspective too, but I'll let you go ahead and talk.
No, that's a perfect launching point. So I know that all of our colleagues, to include us, have been making efforts to reach out to families to offer any kind of support we can, phone, text, virtual, email, just so they still feel connected. But you made a really good point. Even during a normal school year, sometimes school is the place where they feel connected. I'm wondering what your perspective is on the anxieties that you saw during the normal school year versus what are you hearing now? What are you worried about now for our families from a professional perspective?
So when school year started, obviously you get a lot of kids who they miss their mom and dad, they miss grandma, grandpa, whoever they live with. They're coming into a new environment, especially pre-K. That first separation of, oh my goodness, I'm not with mom and dad all the time. So just there's always a lot of crying with that, and just telling kids like, hey, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna see them soon. You just have to get through this little bit of time, and then it'll be fine. So a little bit of anxiety with that, anxiety with, just making friends in general, students just kind of like bickering at each other, like, oh, she said this, he said this, that kind of thing. Whereas now what you're seeing, instead of, oh, this kid's picking on this kid, it's, hey, my kid is having trouble sleeping. It's my kid's having trouble adjusting to the fact they can't go and see their friends. They have to stay inside. If they go anywhere, it's just to the yard. We can't go out and do anything. We can't go to the zoo. We can't go and experience life in this normal way. You also have a lot of families who are getting laid off. So now all of a sudden it's, hey, I don't have money to put food on the table. I don't have a place to go right now. I got kicked out of my house. Kids are seeing more change now than they did when they were going to school and just, oh, I got to leave mom and dad for a couple hours.
So what I hear you, so what I hear you saying is just to pick one, because you and I know there are several types of anxieties out there, but the separation anxiety they felt starting their schooling career, if you will, has evolved into a different kind of separation anxiety, even for the kids who had interpersonal relationship skills with peers, etc. It's a whole new kind of separation anxiety and withdrawal. Now they're not even allowed to try. Now they're not even allowed to connect with that kid they call a friend, even if that kid may not have actually been their friend, because you and I worked with plenty of kids. Hey, Johnny's my friend, but we know that he's been bullying Johnny, so the perspective taken on it. But so the separation anxiety has sort of evolved into a different kind of thing. But then there's also the anxiety of the unknown, because they're living in a time when mom and dad may not be able to buffer them from the realities of financial concerns, et cetera, because they're all on top of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like kids are going to grow up faster right now because they are seeing all those things at home.
Yeah.
And now and with them being so close to their parents, if you have a family who has a cycle of abuse, now they're even closer to that too.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of change, like you said, from the separation anxiety from mom and dad to, I don't know what's going to happen, to a more generalized, like, is the world going to end? Am I going to get sick? Are my parents going to get sick? Because as a kid, you have that fear all the time of, if mom and dad, if something happens to them, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be taken care of? So now you even have that more because it's like, I'm hearing how bad this virus is. I can't go outside. I can't go see my friends. What happens if mom and dad get this virus? What happens if they get sick? There's so much more now.
So then for our listeners, what I hear you talking about, and I'm in debt for these words and these phrases, so I'm going to put some stamps on things as we go through this. But for our listeners, what I hear you talk about is anticipatory anxiety. Mm-hmm. Those things that are in the future or we think might be in the future, we don't really know. And a lot of that is because we don't have frames of reference. That even you and I, we're not pre-K, yet I don't believe either one of us have lived through an epidemic. I mean, SARS happened, but that didn't affect us like this is affecting us. Mm-hmm. All right, well, and you had said early on, I have leadway to ask anything I'd like. I'd like you to talk about coping skills, but if I may, in addition to your professional experience with anxiety, you said you were willing to talk about some personal experiences. I would like, if you're willing to, talk about your personal experiences with anxiety and maybe launch into the coping skills you've found helpful for you. And then we can go into that discussion about, okay, so how can we role model that for our families? How can they take those strategies for themselves? So please take that away, your personal perspective.
So I know a lot of people use the term anxiety to think like, oh, like I'm really stressed out. I'm having trouble worrying about all these different things. It's so different when you actually come at it from a medical perspective, because anxiety isn't, oh, I'm worried that I'm going to, not pay bills. I'm worried that, I'm going to get in a car accident. It's not that. It's I'm worried about everything. I'm worried that if I go outside, something bad's going to happen to me. Something bad's going to happen to somebody I love. It's constantly being worried about everything around you. And it's those old pinball machines where you pull the thing back and then the ball goes flying and then it just bounces everywhere. That's what your brain does. Your brain starts going from, I'm worried about this to this, to this, 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 and you rack up a lot of points.
Well, and those points are, to flip the script, the way we're talking about it, those points are concerning points for someone with anxiety. Okay.
Absolutely. Because you go from, I'm worried about this to now I'm worried about this, but I'm going to bounce back to this because this tails off of this, but that does too. your brain is going 100 miles per hour when the speed limit is only 65. And it's a
You
struggle
may not have the
because
brake or the steering wheel to control that.
exactly, and it happens all the time. It's not a matter of I can turn it on and off like a light switch. It's just the light's constantly on all night
So now,
long.
so now you as a trained and educated professional with experience, both collegiate practice, internship, and the real deal now in the field, through your lifetime, how have you figured out how to cope with this? I can imagine that, not knowing when you first started feeling anxiety, I can imagine that, let's say you had anxiety as a teenager, from then to now, you've developed some different strategies, but I would love to hear the journey of strategies, because some of these families might be trying the very same strategies, and maybe they're finding success with it, maybe they're not. Please talk to that, your journey of the strategies.
So I've had this since I was really little. I was always worried about everything. And at first, I try to ignore it. That's normally what a lot of people do is, oh, I'm just going to ignore it. It'll go away on its own. But the thing is that it doesn't. Especially like if you have something chemically wrong, like you're just firing too much serotonin, you can't just make it go away. Then you start with, okay, well, let me try talking about it. But talking about it sometimes makes it worse. And then as I got older, I started getting into panic attacks, and I had to find out ways to pull myself out of it. And panic attacks, for anyone who has had it, it's very immobilizing. You start kind of going into this little spiral of everything's wrong, nothing is working, nothing fixes it, doesn't matter who says it's going to be okay, it doesn't work. And that's where I kind of stayed for a long time. The one thing I really want to go ahead.
May I interject? So you made the comment that sometimes talking doesn't help, yet people like you and me believe in that talk therapy. We believe in that trying to connect, but I don't disagree with you. I think anything can be good, bad, helpful, not helpful. It really depends on the person or the people in the relationship. Is it that at those times when talking didn't help, may I presume that that's because the irrational thoughts were overpowering the rational thoughts? Okay. So it takes some time and effort to make certain things be helpful, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you're in that state of pure panic, you don't remember what rational is. It's almost like it's there kind of whispering in your ear, but the irrational voice is just so loud that it tunes it out. And this can go on for 5 minutes. It could go on I've had a panic attack go on for almost 2 hours. It fluctuates depending on how stressed you are.
How did you come out of that? Because I know I deal with a lot of families that also suffer anxiety to that level. How have you learned to come out of that? How did people help you come out of it? Help me figure out the right question there.
So when I found out that talking really just didn't work, I realized that through just kind of learning professionally and through learning just from my own experiences, that you have to tap into that rational part of your brain in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's, I'm going to count 20 using 1.5, or I'm going to count backwards using 2, or I'm going to say the alphabet completely, or I'm going to say the alphabet backwards. I'm going to spell a hard word. You got to get your brain going in a rational thought, because you can't think about math or spelling or anything like that and be irrational at the same time. Your brain has to pick one.
So then what I hear you saying is you had to interrupt the irrational in order to give yourself just enough time to kick in the rational. Would that be accurate? Okay.
Yep, but the thing is, you have to do it for a little while. You can't just, I'm going to count to 20 using 1.5. So 1, 2, you have to go up, go back, go up, go back. Because the more time you spend in that rational brain, the more the irrational part becomes smaller. And once you get that rational part big enough, you can actually go in and say, okay, what is happening? What is the rational way to think about all of this?
Now, for those parents who have 5-year-olds or 8-year-olds and say, well, they won't understand that vocabulary, can you help them understand how they could get their child to calm down and be a little more rationally behaved, dare I combine terms?
So one of the things that I love to use with my kids, and my kids, I mean my students. I don't have kids yet, but for those of us in education, like that,
Right.
like all the kids in your school are your kids.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Since they're so little, I like having them take their hand and just touching their thumb to each finger, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
and just go up and down. And just let them keep doing that, because I'm telling you, kids will get fixated on that hand,
Right.
and then they're going to start counting with you, and then you slowly start saying, okay, all right, so let's talk about what's going on. How are you feeling right now? And you just keep going with this as you talk in that nice calm voice. The calmer you are when someone is having that panic and that anxiety, the more you're going to see those better results. Because if you start yelling at them, if you start saying, I don't understand why you're doing this, and you shouldn't be doing this, there's nothing to worry about, that's not going to help.
So I hear you say, be the yin to the yang, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
The balance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I want to do a little thing for parents too.
Yeah, we want you to give us all the coping strategies you think might help. Go ahead.
Well, one of the big things that I want to preach is definitely, just because it works on young kids doesn't mean it doesn't work on adults. I mean, I'm telling you, there are times when I even do this, and it's just like, okay, think of something funny. Tell yourself a joke. Have someone around you make you laugh. Because I'm telling you, it's hard to laugh and also be panicked at the same time. I can't tell you the number of times my husband has told me like a corny joke, and I'm just like, oh, that's really, really funny. But the other thing is that adults we're very prideful. Not so much the little kids, but we're very prideful. So it's, oh, I don't have a problem.
Right.
I don't need to get help. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm fine. And you have also the stigma with counseling and how it doesn't work, and I don't want somebody in my head and all that. But
let's be honest right there. You said two key things in my mind. The key word was problem. People still look at this as a problem. There's still that stigma to it. Now, you and I know that people in our professions, we get the benefit of, I'll say this for myself, therapizing each other, getting some therapy for ourselves through our colleagues, and never having to officially admit we went into therapy. But quite frankly, it's very helpful to be talking to each other, and having each other counsel each other through whatever the issue is. Do you think that the adults are prideful? Well, why do you think they're prideful? I'll just leave it at that.
I think that everyone thinks they can take care of everything themselves. And that's not a bad thing, because it's, I can pay bills, I can go to my job, I'm confident in my work. But when it comes to saying I have a problem, no one wants to admit that.
Would you agree? I'm sorry. Would you agree? I not to lead you, because you and I have talked. You know a lot of my babble, but would you not agree that the great majority of people walking and talking out there have some level of anxiety? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
And again, not to be too obviously leading, would you agree that anxiety is not abnormal? This is not a bad, negative. It's not the stigma that people take it. Anxiety lets us know, hey, that truck is coming. You might want to move, as much as anything else, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the only difference between normal everyday anxiety and amped up anxiety is basically frequency, intensity, and duration, and you know that.
Right.
But for the viewers out there who don't know, frequency is how often it happens, intensity is how strong is this, and duration is how long. So if you're panicking and you have, let's just go with panic attacks, because I think that's kind of like a bigger thing. Not that everyone has them, but we'll just go with it. If you're having panic attacks that are super, super severe to where you can't do anything, you're immobile, you're on the ground just in a ball, you have them every single day, and you've had them every single day for 6 months or longer, you got to go and get some help.
So what I hear you saying is, if the level of anxiety, if it reaches a panic level, if the level of anxiety, because there's also anxiety attacks, but if the level of anxiety interrupts your and this is the bad word in our world, normal, you know, our normal functioning, whatever that is for each person is different. If the anxiety gets to a point that it interrupts your normal daily functioning, then maybe you need to do something about it, pay better attention to it, seek help, what have you. But could you talk about that compared to, dare I say, regular everyday anxieties? Because we all worry about money. We all worry about finances, even when there's not a pandemic. What should I be doing if that anxiety interrupts my daily routine versus how can I handle everyday worries and not obsess on those?
So, and hopefully I answer your question right. So with just everyday regular anxiety, that's like you said, that's, you know, hey, I got to make sure I pay bills. Hey, I have this big project at work coming up. I'm super nervous about. I have to do a presentation over Zoom, and I'm a little nervous. That is normal, quote unquote normal. But
so how did you handle that coming into this? Be the guinea pig for the audience. How did you handle this?
So I was super nervous. I practiced the night before saying like, okay, went down through the questions you sent me. Sure. Okay, I really want to touch on this. I really want to touch on that. I may not do this as much, but I'm going to do this. I made sure I got ready this morning, put on some makeup, did the usual girl thing. But I'm also a lot better now than I used to be. If I would have done this before, I mean, I would be stuttering, I would be shaking, like you could visibly see me shaking. I would have gotten up at like 6 o'clock for this 10 o'clock interview and cleaned the whole house, done everything. I get this weird organization thing.
Something just dawned on me too, though, and I'm being presumptuous here. I'm hoping that part of the equation of how you dealt with the anxiety coming into this interview is that we are friends, we are familiar with each other, we are comfortable with each other. And that made me think of support network. Would it be good advice for these folks to take account of their support network and start with the people they feel most comfortable, confident with to sort of address those anxieties, people that know them?
Absolutely. We are social beings. Human beings are meant to be out there socializing, which is why this pandemic is so hard, because we can't go out and socialize. We have to do Zoom meetings. And while this is great, and while seeing people over Skype is great, and texting and FaceTiming, it's not the same as having that person right across from you, where you can read all their body language, or you can watch all their facial features just move so you can tell how they're feeling.
Right.
And it's so hard to reach out, but you have to. You can't just go into this dark hole of depression where you're stuck inside looking at the same four walls and you are saying, I don't want to reach out to anybody. I just want to stay here. I don't have the motivation to reach out. You have to. Because that one time you reach out, you're going to feel so much better because you're saying, you know, I need somebody. I just want to talk about this.
How do you respond when families say, okay, but we've lost our routine, they're not in school like they normally are? What advice can you give families if indeed you support the idea of routines and schedules being helpful? How could they set up routines in their home to help them adjust to this, as I keep hearing it called, new normal?
So what I'd say is write it down. Put it on the fridge, put it on a whiteboard, put it somewhere where everyone can see it. If you have to say, all right, everyone, so school normally starts at, you know, we have kids come in at 8:20.
Right.
You know, when 8:20 happens, you're going to come downstairs, you're going to have your breakfast, and you're going to start a little bit of morning work.
Now I can hear one of my parents right now saying, he's not sleeping normal, he's not getting up until 10. Is it okay for them to adjust the reality of their schedules or routines?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But once you have a routine, keep to it. Don't divert from it. Now I get it. Things happen, you know, like let's say, you know, kids are supposed to be, you know, having their quote unquote recess time, but you know, a family member comes in and they just want to say hi, and you can adjust, but you can't adjust it so much to where it goes off pattern.
Okay. You mentioned recess, and it made me think, again, I'm thinking of the parents I've talked to there. I've been hearing from a lot of parents. For those who have nice big backyards or fields near them, that's great. But for those who are in the city or something, they don't really have a lot of room to play. They're gonna say, well, there's no place for recess. Where am I supposed to do that? But immediately I thought of your office, and I'm going to use my word. Please feel free to change it. You have several stations or areas in your office. what kind of advice can you give the parents on how they might be able to set their homes up in stations, or to designate a recess area versus the math class versus, that kind of thing?
So, well, I appreciate that you like the way I have my room set up.
I do. I like it.
But I'll give you an even better room, our pre-K room at the school. I'll tell you, Miss Gilbert, she has the best pre-K room set up because she has the different stations labeled too. She has a station where the kids can go play, cook, or play with dolls. Then she has another one where, here's an iPad station where you can go on educational games. Here's another station where you're going to practice your letters. If you set your area up, because you don't have to use the whole house. If you want to, that'd be cool too, because they can just run from station to station. But even if it's just part of the living room, have one section where it's, hey, you're going to play educational games on the iPad if you have one. Over here, you're going to do this puzzle. You're going to try to put together this puzzle as fast as you can. All right. Now you're going to try to put like these couple pieces together as fast as you can. Then you can move over here to, okay, now you're going to play with Legos. You're going to build something. Give them something to build.
All right. So now it pops in my mind. I'm thinking, let's say they get this wonderful schedule, routine, station thing set up. But I'm thinking of the adult, and I immediately think of teachers. I'm married to a teacher. You and I work with teachers. We know that while they're given their prep time, a lot of them use their prep time for so many other things, and they don't really get that time to decompress or think to themselves. A lot of them give up their lunch times. Some wonderful people out there, and I think families are finding just how on top of the adults that children really are. I'm hoping that coming out of this, there's a lot more empathy and sympathy between the parties. But what can the adult be doing to benefit from this routine and this station idea and this schedule, and not feel like that was just one more thing that we added on their anxiety that they've got to worry about? In other words, is it okay for them to check out mentally for a few moments from time to time, and how can they do that in their own home?
Absolutely, it's okay to check out sometimes. We'll go back to the whole recess idea. If you know that they're going to do their recess time for 20 minutes, make a list for them to do, and then while they're having the recess time, do something for yourself. Whether it's, I'm going to make my favorite food today, or you know what, I'm going to maybe sit and watch a 20-minute video on something that I like, and I'm going to drink my coffee.
And is it okay, do you think, for the parents to say to the children, all right, this is a boundary during this time? This is private space for mommy or daddy.
Yeah, you have to do that, because I love kids, and kids will latch on to the people that they love too. Right. So they'll want to be around you all the time. But if you have to say, hey, look, I got to have some time to myself, then do that. You can't be afraid to take some time for self-care. And I hope my mother-in-law doesn't hate me for talking about her on here. I love my mother-in-law. She's just absolutely fantastic. She raised 4 boys. I don't know how she did it. That is a feat in itself. But what she and was, the boys had a certain bedtime. They would go to bed, and then they would have their time together. That was their way of decompressing and setting up for the next day. I know that some people don't want to get up early, but I know they also did that too. They got up early, they did what they wanted to do in the morning, had their coffee and tea, and then they were ready for the day.
And to me, I hear you saying that goes to the person. So if I'm an early riser, so be it. If I'm not, that's okay too. There's not anything wrong with that necessarily.
Absolutely. And if the kids have a set bedtime, keep that set bedtime. Right now, I get it, they don't have school, and I know some parents are like, yeah, you can stay up, go ahead and just do what you need to do. But that bedtime it's for them, but it's also for you right now, because that's a good time to take for yourself.
There's a question you just made me think of too. So we're talking about doing routines and schedules and all that stuff, and that sounds very structured, and we know the benefit of that. But there are people out there who are more fly by the seat, shoot from the hip, more fluid. I don't necessarily see a problem with that. Do you think that's okay? I mean, if that's who their family is, as long as they can get done what they're supposed to get done. Do you have any worries or concerns about that? And if you do, please speak up.
So all families are going to be different, and that's okay. You know what's best for your kids and what's best for your family. I can just sit here and kind of give you, as much as we hate this word, advice.
Right.
But
Another bad word. Normal and advice are bad words in our language.
true. But I find that if you give kids a schedule and you give them a routine, that's stability in their life.
It is.
Especially now with the world being so unstable, you need to give them that little bit of stability to say, I know that at this time I should expect this. At this time I should expect this. So I would encourage those parents who are very fly by the seat of their pants. You don't have to have a schedule laid out like every hour, even if it's like at 8:20 you're going to start your math. And then when you're done with it, you're done with it. That's great. But then when noon rolls around, we're going to go into reading. You know, you don't have to have a really set one, but just that little bit of stability is just going to help them so
So I hear a continuum. Some people might like a really strict schedule and do well with it. Other people might like a broader approach to it.
Okay. Absolutely. And I feel that when you have those, even those little bit of set times, you're going to feel a lot better too, because you're going to know that, okay, I know that when the kids are done with their math work, and you start getting a feel for when they normally get done, which is normally like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I know that I have 2 hours to just kind of do whatever to myself because they're going to be on their iPads, which I don't encourage. I really hope that parents send their kids outside, do activities with them. But if that's how you do self-care, then there you go.
Okay, so that leads me into, I want to talk about resources, but I want to say that for last, okay? But I had my little script up here, my little questions. In addition to all this talk about, anxiety and managing that kind of stuff and the strategies, what topics of passion do you have that you want to talk about? What would you like to bring up?
So I love preaching about the self-care, just because I know that's what I struggle with a lot. And I know that a lot of people also struggle with that. I can tell you like numerous amounts of parents who I've talked to where they're super mom, super dad. They want everything for their kids and they're spending all this time just taking care of them, making sure they do their work. And they're also working with their own job. And what I like to say, and someone close to me said this to me, you can't help somebody else if you're drowning yourself. We go on airplanes and they're like, put your mask on before you help somebody else. It's true though. You can't be that stable person for your kids if you are unstable yourself.
So how do you self-care?
Do something nice for yourself every day. One nice thing, whether it's having your cup of coffee in the morning, taking those 5 minutes to just kind of decompress. You need to do one thing nice for yourself every single day, no matter how little it is, because that one nice thing is just going to make your whole day. And the other thing is, I like making things. Okay. I'm a big, I can't crochet at all, so I do loopy yarn. So just find your own passion or hobby where maybe you create something. Even if you're a bad drawer, draw something. Right. If you are a writer, write something, write a story. It doesn't matter who sees it. If you want to journal, then journal. Find what you love and do that every single day.
And I hear you saying do that for yourself, because I'm thinking of the writing thing. That is not my biggest passion, but I've always thought how cool it would be to be on Oprah Winfrey's Book Club of the Month when she did that kind of thing, But I hear you saying don't worry about what other people think of it. You do it because you like it. I saw a kid here in Montgomery, or near us here in Montgomery, Maryland, who's been writing his own lyrics to a song, and he trended. This is like a 5th grader, I think. And the wisdom out of this kid, he was like, don't do it for likes. Don't do it because other people approve of it. Do it because you like doing it. That's what I hear you saying. You do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that people kind of have in their head is, oh, well, if I do something for me, it's selfish. It's not. Selfish is, I'm going to make it all about me. I'm going to take away time from other people. That we all know what selfish looks like. But saying, I'm going to take 20 minutes to myself, or I'm going to take an hour to myself just to help with my mental health, that isn't selfish.
So I hear you saying self-care actually helps you be a better caring person for others.
Absolutely. And especially coming full circle to the anxiety part,
sure.
When you take care of yourself and you feel less stressed, it starts to break apart that cycle of I'm anxious, now I'm relaxed. I'm anxious, now I'm relaxed. Like it starts breaking that, because instead of, oh, I got all this stuff to do, I have to make sure I do it. It's, I'm just going to take a second. I'm going to drink my coffee and I'm going to relax for a second. Then I'm going to worry about the stuff I need to do. You learn how to start compartmentalizing into what's really important to worry about and what can wait. When you're, sorry to keep on rambling on.
Go, you're good. You're good.
But for those who get really anxious about different things, who have a lot of worries, we tend to think that the faster we get it taken care of, the less we're going to be anxious. We think it works, but it really doesn't, because once we get all the stuff we want to get done, we feel better for like a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden we find 10 more things that we need to worry about, and we want to get it done now.
So let me segue there. What you're saying just made it dawn on me. Here we are talking about, setting schedules and routines for the children and family's sake, and we're talking about decompressing and downtime for ourselves as self-care. And maybe I missed something you already said, but big old duh, have the adult do a schedule for themselves. What are mommy's priorities for the day, or daddy's, so that they don't get out of control worrying about everything. Go back to their list. Did I get the kids started on their routine today? Yes. Did I make lunch? Yes. Not to be stereotypical, but would that not be a good idea too? I'm thinking on that refrigerator next to the kids' schedule, put the mommy daddy schedule, so that the kids understand and have some sense of security where everybody is and what everybody's doing. You think that could help as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of people find comfort in having a checklist, and every time we make a checklist, whether it's groceries or just chores around the house, every time we cross one off, it's like, man, I feel good because I accomplished something. So even having a checklist is almost a way of like having a coping skill, because you start feeling good about yourself. Wow, like I made sure I did get the kids on routine today. Like that's awesome. I can check that off the list. But going into the reverse of that, some people find having a lot of lists around is actually really stressful, because I'm looking at this list all the time, like, oh my God, I have so much to do. What am I going to do?
So what do you do then if the list stresses you out? How do you cope?
So what you can do is, if you have a really good memory, then you don't have to have a list. If that's what's going to stress you out, don't worry about writing it down. Maybe have a list of things you need to do, but don't put it somewhere where you're looking at it all the time. Maybe put it somewhere where you have to just walk up to it and look at it. So say your kitchen's downstairs and your bedrooms are upstairs. My suggestion, keep your list in your bedroom. Come downstairs, accomplish one thing. And then you have to walk the whole way back upstairs, which gives you time to just kind of breathe for a minute, think, go up, look at the list, come back down, do what you need to do, and just make a little walking trail for yourself.
That's very clever. I hear a little time and a little exercise put in there. That's very good.
Oh yeah, exercise. And some people don't like exercise, but I think it's a great way to just kind of keep yourself elevated, keep yourself kind of feeling good about yourself. You don't have to do this really strenuous, high intensity workout. You don't have to run 6 miles. Even if it's just like, I'm just going to take 10 minutes to stretch. It's still get your body moving, makes you feel good.
So what resources have you used personally and professionally that maybe the families can find out there, or they can find things like it out there?
So first, what I would do is, if you are struggling with mental right. That anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, anything like that, my first message to you is, it's going to be okay. You're normal. Like everyone has some kind of problem with them. All right. But you can't be afraid to go get help. So just don't worry. Everyone still loves you and the world still loves you, even if you are a little different.
There are several crisis lines out there, is my understanding. I would have confidence that they could Google whatever their crisis might be. I would talk about people who don't have the internet, but not to be insensitive. People who don't have the internet aren't going to see this video, so I'm not sure that is going to help them. However, for those who have the internet but still would rather do something other than Google, I'm sure there's a local directory of resources that they can reach out to, social services departments, Department of Human Services, whatever it might be called in your area. So
yes, for those, I'm going to speak West Virginia just because, we're both from there. But DHHR is a great resource if you're struggling with, bills, like food, anything like that. They have an emergency family assistance program. It's great. They have SNAP benefits where you can get medical care. Like it's a good place to go. DHHR gets this whole bad rap for being, linked with CPS and everything, but they do have all of those resources. Again, like the SNAP benefits, the Medicare, like everything, like you can find so much on that site.
But as you and I know, DHHR and CPS, they have very positive missions. They get some of the toughest jobs, and you're not always popular in those jobs. But you and I can speak to the fact that the mission is to keep families together, to keep families surviving, thriving even. What do you know about, so hopefully some of our families actually see this and they want to reach out to the school. I presume the children are able and allowed to talk to their counselors if they want. How can the families go about getting that? Maybe they don't know what school to call or what person. How can they get started reaching out to our school districts and say, or any school district, say, hey, my kid really needs to talk to his counselor?
So right now, with us being away from our phones, we're using personal phones, and normally a lot of times we block our number just because we don't want to have our number just kind of swimming out there all the time. And hopefully that doesn't offend any families. It's not because we don't like you, it's just because that's part of us kind of keeping ourselves, safe. But if you want to reach out to your counselor, every school website, at least in our area, Berkeley County, at least in our area, has a counselor page where they have their contact information. Right now, you can reach any counselor through email. And that's what I tell my families all the time. If you need me to FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, or talk to a kid on the phone, send me an email. We will schedule a date and time. Kids need that little extra emotional support right now. Not all kids, but some of them do. And for those who do, your school counselor is there for you. I'm going to go on a little rant if that's okay. Whenever you hear the term counselor in a school, you automatically go to guidance counselor. It's not.
The term has evolved a little better, I think. Yeah.
Yes, because when I think guidance counselor, I think, oh, I'm just doing scheduling, I'm just doing guidance lessons, but it's so much more. We know how to actually, quote unquote, do therapy with kids to help them get through things. We were trained in the different techniques. So don't think that we're there just to give out guidance lessons and to answer your questions about, attendance, food, and all that. We're here to give the kids what they need, that extra emotional support. That's here, I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to do a little bit of CBT. We're going to go through your rational thoughts. We're going to do this. We have more resources than what people think we do.
Yeah, for our families, and obviously I'm going to have a positive bias in support of what you're saying, but our school counselors, those are mental health practitioners who each university is different, each experience career is different, but they have varying levels of training, education, experience with mental health, with therapy. And there can be some territorial attitudes out there, but they're not trying to take away from anybody. These are mental health professionals who just happen to specialize their practice in a school setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just because you feel like we need to talk to your kid doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job.
No, oh my God, no.
We have a couple more tools that maybe you don't have, and our goal is to give you the tools also. So don't think
let's be honest. We've talked. I call it the third party phenomenon. I could talk to one of my kids, right? I'm a psychologist. I'm supposed to be educated, right? I've been doing this for how many decades? So the gray is very real. My kids may not listen to me, but Victoria turns around and says something, and all of a sudden it's brilliant advice. And I'm thinking, did I not just say that? Whatever. Pick your battles, parents, okay? If they want to listen to Victoria instead of you or me, thank God and move on, because you've got to focus on what the real goal is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And adults are like that too. Like you could have your husband, wife, brother, sister, like mom, dad say something to you, and then all of a sudden somebody else says it, and it's like, that's a good idea. But they literally said the same thing 2 seconds ago. We're here to help. That's the biggest thing, is even if we're out of school, we're here to help. We love your kids. That's why we got into the profession we did, is because we want to help the next generation find the skills that maybe we didn't have growing up.
Right.
You know, that's one of the biggest things. So don't think that you're, you know, just putting us out by, you know, not talking to, by, you know, calling us and saying, hey, I need help. Don't think that you're a burden. You know, we're here to help you. And I'm going to segue into another message with that.
Go ahead.
Don't think that by asking for help, whether it's from a mental health professional or a friend or a family member, like for your mental health or somebody else's, that you're being a burden. You know, you are not a burden. You are wonderful. And sometimes we all need a little help. And if you need a little more help than other people do, that's totally okay. Don't feel like you need to suffer by yourself. Reach out.
It's going to sound cliche, but you and I have talked before. Helping others really helps us. You know, it's something. There's something in that relationship. There's a benefit to that. You know, so and maybe we're just the sounding board for whoever contacts us. It's kind of like when I ask my wife where my socks are, like she knows, you know. But as soon as I ask her, I find my socks, you know. So, hey, with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Stay with me, Victoria. I'm going to pause this recording. I appreciate everybody who's watched. If it was of benefit or interest, please share it. Please put it out there. Please let people know about it. Remember what Victoria was saying. You can reach out to your school districts. There's likely a counselor page on every district. For Victoria and I, we represent Berkeley County Schools in West Virginia. Very proud of our school district. There are so many good people there. Please know that there are so many resources for you there. Get on the website, talk to somebody. We'll get you to the right people. All right. Thank you very much for listening, everyone.